Welcome everybody. This is 501 Tech NYC, our monthly meetup event. My name is Chris Tuttle. I'm one of the co-organizers along with
Brianna Collins
and Joe Moran and Anne, who is, where is Anne right now?
She's at a conference.
She's at a conference traveling. Anne from Whole Whale is going to be with us tonight. Tonight's topic, the biggest cyber threats and what your nonprofit can do to stay secure. Some quick introductions and updates first. About NTEN, about NTC coming up, the National Nonprofit Technology Conference, and then we'll dive into today's topic. NTEN
is a national membership organization where nonprofit professionals learn about and celebrate the ways technology help us meet our mission. 501 Tech NYC is the New York City chapter of NTEN, which is a national organization, and you can find other chapters all over the country, and we also have online groups for specific issue areas.
We introduced ourselves really quickly as the co-organizers. The meetups are happening monthly. We've been on our new space here for about a year, and we're still looking to get more involved. We've actually started live streaming recently, and we've had lots of viewers online. And we have all, like most of it these days, have great registration, and then not always great attendance. So bring your friends, and if you have topics you want to present on or want to hear about, let us know. We're bringing in some really great speakers later this year. We've already announced even one coming up in July, which we'll talk about in a second.
Tonight's meeting space, as Chris mentioned, we've been at Civic Hall for about a year, and we really want to thank them for their support. Yes. Snacks for Civic Hall. Civic Hall is a great space. They're a wonderful organization, membership organization as well, that helps connect mission-driven organizations.
Social engineering. Well, phishing is a form of social engineering, so we don't list it separately. So unfortunately, I'm not going to buzz you for that one because it's included, but we'll try. Yeah. DDoS. DDoS? Yeah, very good. Wow, that's a late one. Congratulations. All right.
WordPress.
Huh?
WordPress.
WordPress. We'll put that one under your website or your social media hack. Very good. All right, go grab yourself a prize. FlexRexy. What else? Any guesses?
Weak passwords.
Pardon?
Weak passwords.
Weak passwords. Let's go ahead and drop that under account compromise. Because you have a weak password, your account gets compromised. Feel free to come grab a FlexiRexy or a FlexiOctopus. Everybody's doing great. You're filling out this board very well. Others? No one's thinking of what I think of the big one. Read about all the time.
Non-updated OS, like old, like running.
Yeah, it's a vulnerability that will lead to a lot of these things happening. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to buzz you for that one. I'm so sorry. Oh, that's terrible. All right. Other one good here. Yeah, go ahead.
Fake donations.
Fake donations. Wow, I didn't think anyone was going to get that one. So that is referred to as card testing, where they use your site to test stolen credit cards, which kind of a weird problem because you're getting money. Stolen money. All right, unbelievable. Others? Guesses? Go ahead, anyone? If you already won a prize, you can win another one. It's fine. Malware, we'll go ahead and say ransomware, which is certainly one of the more malicious kinds of malware. Excellent job. Feel free to grab another one if you want. All right, we got 2 left. Can we get them? Everyone's doing great. Go ahead. Network vulnerabilities, I am sorry. All right, we'll do that one. There's one more strike before I'll just have to give you the other answers. Go ahead, yell something out. What is it? Fake website would probably fall under the website being hacked. I'm going to have to buzz you for that one. I'm sorry. So number 5 is insider threat and staff errors. I kind of lump those together. Literally, staff just accidentally deleting stuff is one of your bigger threats, and then also insider threats. Mike, you struck out already. Go ahead.
Mobile devices or bring your own device.
That sort of the last one was actually data breaches. So data, usually through third-party providers or other things where your data gets breached. But great job. I much better than I thought we would do there. And let's jump back into our slide deck. And hopefully there we go. And back in. And here's the part where I will just give the caveat that I am going to go fast. There's a lot of slides here. Again, you've got all the notes, all the resources, everything like that, but I do want to try to buzz through this. So I'm going to start, because we're talking about cybersecurity, I just like to define what we're talking about. So you've got, first of all, the cyber side, which is that if I'm going to exchange an email message with Howard over here, all right, I'm going to use, let's say my iPhone, all right, so that's my device. The communication method is an email. The system, let's say I'm using Gmail, and then the information is the content of that message that I'm sending. Now let's say he's on his Surface Pro laptop. That's his device. Let's say he's using Outlook, Office 365, so that's the system that he's on. It's still email, and then there's the content of that message. Now, confidentiality, integrity, availability is asking the question, how much do we care, all right, if these emails that we're exchanging are exposed to unauthorized parties? That's confidentiality. How much do we care if our emails are lost and we can't recover them, or if someone else gets in the middle and changes our emails? That's integrity. And how much do Howard and I care if we can't email each other for some period of time? That's availability. And if you extrapolate that out to your website, your documents, your databases, everything you work with, and all the devices and systems that they may be in Salesforce and WordPress and everything else, that, in a nutshell, is cybersecurity. So that is just, so we're a common definition. Now, you've got all these different frameworks. All right, so we've got NIST, we've got CIS, we've got High Trust, we've got COBIT. And by the way, this is just some of them, more coming on all the time, of ways to think about your cybersecurity. So the question is, where do you start? Now, for those of you who are like a little tired and you want to go home, one of the other things we promised, we've talked about threats. I also said I'm going to give you 3 things you can do right now. So if you want to go home, too long, didn't read, I don't want to stay here for this hour of cybersecurity, put 2FA on everything you have. 2-factor authentication. We'll define it later if you don't know what it is. All right? Make sure you have really good backups that actually work, that you can restore from, that you test, so you can restore your information, and train your staff, all right, to understand what kind of threats are out there and how they can protect themselves. These are 3 simple, basically free things that you can do, or very low cost. Right now, you could have them done in a couple of weeks, and you would be in a much stronger position, all right? And then you can forget about all the rest of the stuff. And I often will tell people who come to me and say, we'd like a cybersecurity assessment, can you come in and, we'll pay $10,000 to spend a couple of months with us and tell us all our vulnerabilities and what we should do? I'll say, do you do any of these things? Why don't you do those things and then call me, and then we'll actually do an assessment, because it's a waste of my time and your money, okay? Now, pretty please, WRI, no Previrai. Trust. Any Russian speakers? Native? Okay, good. It's not going to be really upset at how badly I've mangled that. WRI, no Previrai. Trust, but verify. This magic word of verify can stop so many kinds of attacks right in their tracks if it's applied broadly. So trust, but verify. Now, if you're not going to take the too long to read and do the 3 things, you actually say, no, Josh, I really want to do a true cybersecurity program for my organization. I really want to embark on it. Then it's important to think of it like fitness. You're not just going to do a bunch of work over the next 3 months, get yourself in good cybersecurity, and then be done. This is something that you have to spend the rest of your organizational life working on. You have to get, if you're totally out of shape right now, you're going to have some work to do to get in shape. But once you're in shape, you can't stop doing that work entirely. You have to keep doing it to stay in shape. And that's a really critical way to think about a cybersecurity program. The other thing to think about with cybersecurity, especially if you're the one bringing it to your organization, is that usually the more you increase security, the more you decrease usability. That isn't always true, but it's often true, especially when cybersecurity is done badly. All right, and so we have a very secure bicycle here that is not very usable. That is not what we want to do, because if you do this in the digital world with today's tools, your staff will find a different bicycle and they will ride it. And that's easy for them to do, and then you will not have a secure bicycle anymore, okay? Now, this I'm going to walk through very quickly. It's this idea of, it's a fundamental concept of cybersecurity, which is this idea of defense in depth. And those will look a lot better from out there than that. I was going to say this. The colors are terrible here, but hopefully you can read that. So I'm going to, what's your name right here? I'm sorry?
Lubna?
Lubna. Okay, so let's say I'm going to try to attack Lubna's organization, and I'm going to do that. All right, I'm a bad guy, and I'm going to try to send you a malicious PDF with some malware in it that's going to encrypt everything on your computer, everything on your network, and then I'm going to demand a ransom to get it back. Ransomware 101, okay? So that's my way that I'm going to attack you. This is, as we saw in the biggest threats, the #1 threat. Not to get too sidetracked, but there's this amazing tool called the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and there's a additional tool that was created by Palo Alto Networks for Unit 42, where they give you playbooks of really advanced cyber attackers. So, APT groups out of China and North Korea and everything, and they show you the way that they do attacks. So I was exploring this yesterday for a certain threat model that I'm working with for one of my projects, and looking at how they get into organizations. It's like the top 20 most sophisticated cybersecurity groups in the world, and it's spear phishing, spear phishing, spear phishing, spear phishing, spear phishing with a link, spear phishing with attachment, spear phishing with a link. Like 80–90% of these groups are still just doing it the old-fashioned way, phishing emails. It's such a great method. So, how does defense in depth works on this? Well, you do an assessment, which we're about to talk about, all right, that says, what are the things we need to put in place? All right, so we put some things in place, and now Lubna has maybe a firewall. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, Lubna has a firewall that maybe recognizes this malware attachment and doesn't even let it get on your network. Or maybe your Gmail spam filter, your Outlook spam filter, strips it out and dumps it in your junk file so you never see it, right? But let's say my crafty little message gets past these first layers. Well, now you've had a training that says, you know what? Suspicious attachments that you weren't expecting, even if it seems like it's from, isn't something you should open. So you don't open it. Or maybe there's a policy that even says you're not allowed to do that without verifying it first, right? You're gonna verify it. So you pick up the phone, you call me, say, Josh, do you really mean it? And I say, I didn't send you any PDF. I say, great, I'm gonna prevent spam. But let's say you missed that training, you were tired, you're rushed, you're like, you double click on the PDF, my wonderful malware exploit that I've worked so hard to get into your network right now is gonna try to run. And it's going to try to exploit known vulnerabilities on your system. That could be an Adobe Reader, that could be a Microsoft Windows operating system. Now, if your system is patched, right, fully up to date, my exploit can't successfully run because the vulnerability isn't there anymore. You patched it. Or if you have malware protection or antivirus protection, maybe that will catch it. Thing I like to point out, antivirus, which many people think of as the only protection that they need, is, and by the way, this isn't the full defense in depth. If I wanted to make this even longer, I'd make this 25 things. It's one little thing in all of those layers of defense, okay? If I get past all of that, now Luke, you've been trained to say, oh, I clicked this attachment, something weird happened on my computer, let me notify my great IT guy, Ken over here, right away. Ken's gonna segment, take your computer off the network, isolate it, either clean the malware or reformat the system, restore from a backup, and instead of this being downtime for your organization for days or weeks or months, and you're actually having to be like, oh gosh, do we have to pay this ransom? It's maybe an hour of downtime for just you, Luna, because we have a response plan and we have good backups. That is defense in depth in a nutshell. You're not going to stop every bad thing from happening. I'm never going to stand up here and say, if you do everything I tell you to, nothing bad will ever happen to you. That's nonsense. But you can make a lot fewer bad things happen to you, and you can make the bad things that do happen a lot less bad by implementing these things. That is defense in depth. Phishing, all right, 90% of every attack. I said literally, I was looking today, these are the most advanced ever. It's still spear phishing. It's still, I'm going to try to exploit a human being first. That is the easiest way to get into organizations, to get a human being inside that organization to do something for them. Yes?
I know what spear phishing is, but for those who are watching at home.
Please, you say it real loud, but you gotta say it in the microphone. Go ahead, real quick.
Spear phishing is sending a phishing email to a specific individual that you potentially profiled, like that this person's a CFO, or that this person's the assistant to the CFO who might do a money transfer for that person, as an example of spear phishing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Howard. And, this is why account compromises are such a juicy little thing, because if I can get an account inside Howard's organization, I can watch the email thread between Howard and another person and insert myself into that email thread as that other person with my little attachment. That's really good spear phishing, right? Where I'm getting inside all that. So thank you so much, Howard, and I love what Howard just did. I try really hard not to use acronyms or jargon or things that not everybody would know. If I use one and you don't know it, put up your hand and say, I don't know what that little piece of jargon you just spat out is. Please define it. And if you think I use jargon to someone else, then Howard, thank you for doing that. That's awesome.
Are any platforms more susceptible than others for this kind of attack?
Are any platforms more susceptible than others for this kind of attack? Yes. Now, I'll get in trouble for this in some circles. Windows is more vulnerable than other systems for a combination of reasons. It's attacked more, it's in more places, and its infrastructure is just more vulnerable. All right, that's an Android, same thing, more vulnerable. Does that mean you shouldn't use Android? No, but they are more vulnerable. Okay? And people can fight with me on that if you want, but I'll happily fight with you. All right, so we provide first free resource. Every year we do an annual best free 1-hour cybersecurity awareness training ever. Every year it's better than the previous year, so it's still the best one ever. And we provide that for free. We give out hundreds of dollars of prizes. We provide it to any organization. We encourage people to get everybody in a conference room and do it. We did our last one in January, and here's the link to the video. Here's the link to the slide deck. You can take the slide deck. Every piece of content that we make at Roundtable, you can have it. You don't have to ask us. You can use it for anything you want. Use it for your own trainings. Take our logos off of it. We don't care. Okay, use it all you want. So that's free and available. You can use it for your staff, play in the recording, do it yourself if you feel comfortable with it, that's fine. We also created this resource, and this is what Kevin and I's session is going to be based on, this idea of 10 steps to cybersecurity maturity. Each of these is clickable and then takes you to resources and explanations for how to go through these 10 steps. So this is the 10 steps to kind of improve the cybersecurity of your organization. It's not meant to be comprehensive. It's not like if you do everything on this list, you're golden and you're done. But this is what I consider to be a very good starting point to build the cybersecurity program, along with resources and tools to get you there. So that's another free tool that we'll give you. Where do you start when you're trying to build a cybersecurity program? The first thing to understand is, well, what are we worried about? What are the things that would happen to us that would be upsetting, that would disrupt our work? And that process is referred to as threat model, right? Which is, what do we have that we care about? What are the bad things that could happen to it? And who are the people that might make those bad things happen? And how bad would those things be if they happen? So we have here Batman's threat model, which is kind of silly, but actually a pretty decent framework for it. Okay, so these are the assets. This is the stuff that Batman cares about and wants to protect. Emails, Alfred, the Batcave, text. These are the safeguards that are in place to protect those things. And these are the threats, and we've even classified the threats as to high risk, medium risk, and low risk with the thickness of the lines there. So another template is just a really basic way to do your own threat model. It's a nice little exercise for your organization. You can just quickly list out assets that you would care about, what you're currently doing to protect them, and what threats exist. It's an exercise I do in some of my workshops. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, who has lots of phenomenal resources, has a 5-step process that I'll walk you through very quickly. That you start with, what do I want to protect? So I talked before about how to organize emails, your website, the databases that you have, the files you have in cabinets, information that you have. What is it that you want to protect? You have to first know, what do I have? All right. Then, what are the threats to it? So the Electronic Frontier Foundation just says, who do I want to protect? I add what to it, because I think what's also important, which is that a hard drive failing could be your biggest threat, or a hurricane, right? Or a staff accidentally deleting something. This is all stuff I've seen, like actually disrupt organizations in meaningful ways. So what is also important? What do I need to protect it from? Everybody has the same threat model, which is that if you have $10 to your name as an organization or as an individual, and I as an attacker can spend $5 to get it from you, then I will. And if you have $20, then I'll do it twice. And if you have $30, then I'll do it 6 times, right? And I'll keep doing it until you run out of money, or until you make it more expensive for me to get that money from you than the money is worth. That's security 101. I'm trying to make it more expensive for you to do it. And we all share that threat model. Most of the stuff you're reading is people just monetizing cybercrime. Okay? And so we all share that. But an important question is there anyone who would want to disrupt our work or get our information for reasons that are other than financial? For many organizations, that is an easy question to answer. Some harder, some it's an easy no. There's no one that would do that for reasons other than money, right? But that's the basic question. Then it's, how bad is it if we fail, right? Is it the end of our organization? Is it a few $1,000s and a couple of weeks of being a pain in the butt, or is it I don't care at all? All right. If it's an existential level threat, you have to pay attention to it. If someone's going to go to jail or lose their life, you have to pay attention to that. If the organization's reputation can be so damaged that it may cease to exist, you have to pay attention to that. How likely is it they're going to happen? The reason I have this little GIF up here is because we're really bad as human beings at estimating probability of things. So we worry a lot about terrorism. I don't believe that a lot of people in here are worrying much about their furniture killing them. But statistically, as an American, you are as likely to be killed by your own furniture, by the dresser in your room, as you are by a terrorist. And I also don't believe that anyone in this room is spending a lot of time worrying about deer, but you are twice as likely as an American to be killed by a deer as you are by a terrorist. Right? So we're very bad, and there's all sorts of biases, but availability bias, which is I read it in the news and therefore I'm not worried about it, is one of the big ones that works against it. So you'll read about such and such crime, and then you're like, oh, we have to worry about that. Well, maybe not. Okay, so try to get a sense of what the likelihood is, and then all of that leads to the most important question, which is that this stuff is work. This doesn't make us money. This doesn't bring in more donors. This doesn't help us fulfill our mission. This isn't serving more meals at the soup kitchen. This isn't bringing more kids into adoptive homes. This isn't getting more women out of violent relationships and into shelters and supportive care. This is just helping us not get hacked. And it takes a bunch of work. So is it worth it? Well, all those questions lead up to, is it worth it? I'm not the cybersecurity guy who sits up here and you have to do all these things because they're on the checklist. No, you all have missions. Those are important. This stuff is noise until you get hacked. All right, you'll see a lot of terms. Is this pace okay? I'm okay. All right, good. I know I'm moving fast. All right. So you see a lot of terms, risk assessment. I get asked, I get a call a week if someone say we need a cybersecurity audit, we need a risk audit, we need a digital IT assessment analysis, whatever. To me, they're all different words for the same thing. So don't get hung up on the differences between those things. For the most part, they don't matter. There are some cases where it kind of matters, but mostly it doesn't. All right, and there's tons of free materials out there. I'm going to point you to some of the better ones, and this will seem a little immodest because one of them is a resource that we create at Roundtable, but I haven't found a better one. I look, and I would share it if I had a better one. All right, the first one I'll share with is Security Planner from Citizen Lab. Citizen Lab does amazing work, and they have a free tool called Security Planner. This is for all of you as individuals, and you can share this with your staff and say, hey, to protect your personal digital security, this is a great tool you can all use to kind of do a self-audit. All right, it's a wonderful tool that they created, Citizen Lab, and that's another freebie. You can go use that for free, and they'll give you information on things you can do to help your own security, okay? Again, take all the pictures you want, but you got the slide deck, you got the notes, you got everything, so don't worry about it. Now, for an organization, there are a lot of free assessments out there, but there aren't a lot of good ones that are useful for a small business or a small nonprofit. I mean, under 100 staff, may or may not have an IT department. There aren't a lot of great assessments out there. So we created one, and we update it pretty regularly, and it goes through and asks you a bunch of questions on a scale like this, and then you get a report that looks kind of like this. It says, here's your score, here's the score, the average of all the other hundreds of organizations that have taken this assessment, and here's some findings and some recommendations for you, customized based on your score. And there's about 30 odd different questions in here and 5 sections that it goes through. And it, within a half an hour, you can basically have a risk assessment for your organization as long as you can answer the questions somewhat accurately. Totally free, don't have to do anything, don't have to sign up for our email list, don't have to do anything, okay? The bad news, all right, is that you can do these assessments, but at the end of an assessment, you haven't really done any work yet. You're not any more cyber secure after you do an assessment than you were before you did an assessment. You have to do the work that the recommendations of that assessment tell you to do. Otherwise, it's great that you know something, but you're not any better. Okay. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about passwords. Shifting gears. This is a real cybersecurity blanket. That's an actual quilt that a data researcher made back in 2016. It's now available as fabric that you can get curtains. I bought some colleagues' pillows last year that you can get. So if you have cybersecurity friends, you can find this fabric online. It is the 1,000 most used passwords. My name is right there. Very proud of that. I'm one of the most used. At some point, it's kind of my name. My son's name's right there. My wife's name's right there. So my whole family.
Everybody knows
really
security is.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. The most common password is actually hard to see here. It's a word cloud. Does anyone see what the most used password is?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
There it is, right behind. 1, 2, right? That is the most. And you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 5, right? Those are right. It's kind of nice because I love use more prominent, and other things. I love use here too. There's some bad words on there if you look too long, so I won't look it up. But using bad passwords, I think we all understand. But one thing you might not understand is how bad it is. And I'm going to talk just for a moment about this idea of credential stuffing and how this works. So let's pick on someone else. What's your name, right there?
Joe.
Joe. Okay, so let's say Joe's got a Gmail address, joe@gmail.com, and Joe also works at Civic Hall, so we've got Joe at civichall.joe@gmail.com with a password of Joe is awesome123. All right, and I can think of those two things together, joe@gmail.com and Joe is awesome123, as a key that I know works in Gmail. But I can now try that key in every other lock on the internet. So I can go to Amazon, I can go to Home Depot, I can go to Yahoo, I can go to wherever, and see if, and I can say, you know what? Joe's a clever guy. I bet he maybe didn't make them all 1, 2, 3. So let me try Joe's awesome 3, 2, 1. Joe's awesome 1, 1, 1. Joe's awesome exclamation point. Joe, and I can run a little script and I can try all these different combinations of Joe is awesome. Maybe Joe's not that awesome. Maybe he probably did that. And here's where it gets really scary. There's what's called enhancement data, where when you start looking on dark web data breach reports, where I can see that some of the bad guys have said, oh, this joe@gmail.com, we think it's the same as this joe@civichall.org, which is also the same as this joe@sanctuary.org. And I bet he probably uses this joeisawesome123 password in different places, so I'll try that joeisawesome123 with the joe@civichall.org against every site on the internet and see what I get access to. All right, that's called credential stuffing. All right, and that is totally common on the internet. And if I can compromise an account, then I can leverage that account to do what's called lateral movement through the organization, where I can start to try to compromise other accounts and everything. All right, so that's how it works. Yes?
Can you just say that one more time, what credential stuffing is?
Yeah, well, that whole long thing is credential stuffing, but it's essentially taking a known username and password that I found, joe@gmail.com and joeisawesome123, and trying that username and password combo on thousands of different sites and accounts to see if it works in those other places. Okay? So, another free tool, Firefox Monitor. You can monitor the dark web. And if you sign up for a free Firefox account, you can submit multiple emails. So Joe can sign up for a free account at Firefox. He can put in joe@gmail.com, you can put in joe@civichall.org, you can put in joe@sanctuary.org, and he'll get notifications if any of those accounts shows up in a breach. And then he can say, okay, let me make sure I go change that password, change this one, and at least I'm. Now, even though I'm doing that, passwords are just, I've done 2016, I did a webinar that was titled Passwords Are Broken, the premise of which is passwords is a fundamentally broken technology that doesn't work anymore, and we should all stop relying on it, all right? And it's 2020, and people are still mostly relying on passwords for things, and it breaks my heart, and I'm sorry. So we're gonna talk about multi-factor authentication. I talked about this before. This was one of the three things, right? So backups, training, right? So 2FA, multi-factor authentication, or MFA, all right, or two-factor authentication, or 2FA. These are all terms for essentially the same thing. Now, most of us have been using just one factor. It's two things. Joe@gmail.com and joeisawesome123 they're two things, but they're both something that Joe knows, and that also I know, and that everybody in the dark web knows. All right, so it's not really that great as a factor of authentication to only have something I know, because that something that I know can be compromised. So if we add to it something that I have, like a phone, which most of us have, or a physical key, or I add to it something that I am, like my thumbprint, or my face, or my voice. All right, that becomes multi-factor, or if I do two things, like my username and password and some code that I have to have my phone for, that becomes two-factor authentication. And that makes your accounts exponentially more secure. Anything you add 2FA to becomes exponentially more secure. If you ask me, Josh, can I have, Joe says, I want to be more secure. Josh, should I make my password some 97 character gobbledygooky thing? I say, yeah, it's a great idea. Or can I have a really bad password and have 2FA? I would say have the really bad password and have 2FA. And I would tell you that 100 times out of 100. I'd love you to do both, don't get me wrong. I'd like to have the good password and 2FA. But if I have to choose, I will take 2FA all day long. All right?
I've got a question about 2FA.
Yeah.
So, if
I'll put up this so people can read this
if I'm traveling and I lose my phone, what do I do about 2FA? And my phone is my main, way that I authenticate.
Yeah. What's your name?
My name's Ray.
Ray. So Ray asked a great question, which is, okay, I've set up 2FA on my phone, but what if I lose my phone and I'm traveling, now I can't log into my account? Great point. There's a variety, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's a variety of backup mechanisms. One is you can print out what are called one-time passwords that you can keep in your wallet or your purse, and those can work. The other thing is that a lot of codes will work off QR code scans. So if you have another device or you have a friend or a partner that you trust, they can scan that QR code onto their phone at the same time that you scan it, and now you have this nice little synchronized code generator that your friend can be your backup. Or if you have another device, like an iPad or a tablet or something, you can use that to scan the QR code. So there's a variety of ways, and if it's organizationally managed, then the administrator for your organization can always turn off 2FA to let you into your account until you get a phone back. Okay? So you can set up multiple 2FA mechanisms. I could say it could be a code from my phone, or it could be a physical key that I'm carrying with. And so if I know on my phone, I can use the key. Other ones. Ken, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, exactly, key. Makes the phone irrelevant.
Yeah. So you can also use physical keys. Those are, by the way, what Ken was holding up, a little USB key. That's the most secure method of two-factor authentication. But you can then have the phone be a backup to that. So if you lose the key, the phone can be a backup method of authentication. Okay?
I have a stupid question. Tell me how do you actually do that? What do you do with the key?
If I have a physical key, when I go to log in, I just plug the physical key into the computer I'm at, and then I touch it with my finger, and then it logs me in. Okay. And those are unphishable. Google switched to them 2016, and they have not had a phishing breach since. And they're fairly heavily attacked, Google. I'm going to hold more questions because I just want to get through everything, and then if we have time. And I didn't mention this, by the way. I'll mention it now. You have a small audience here. Odds really good. I do quizzes at the end of my sessions. So we have like an 8 or 9 question quiz. You'll need a phone to do it. And I'm going to give away gift cards at the end. So you can win $25, $15, and $10 respectively for first, second, and third place. And gift card of your choice. I do Amazon, Start, whatever you want, as long as I can buy it online, I don't care. And as long as you just come up to me and say, I'm the winner of this, then I'll make sure you get your gift card tomorrow, okay? So everybody has a chance to win. You'll just need your phone handy and pay attention. All right, so policies, real quick. All right, we have this silly thing sitting up here. We have a free policy template. We use the Kitty Crochet Collective as a kind of our mock-up organization for all of our assets. So the Kitty Crochet Collective, this is their technology and data use policy. It's little instructions. If you want to use it, it's a shared Google doc, and you can just make your own copy and go to town. You've got your own tech and data use policy. So that's free. If you're itching for a deep dive on policy, I'm actually doing a 3-part course, 90 minutes each, on policies for Idealware. How excited are you to spend 3 90-minute sessions with me on tech policy? You can barely contain yourselves, but you can sign up for that. It should be a really good course. And one of the challenges with policies that I found, and George Clooney is finding here, is that people don't read them. So you've got a 12-page policy. One of the concepts when I teach the course is the idea that policy is serving a couple of different needs. One of them is liability, and the 12 or 20-page policy that everybody signs, but no one has any idea what it actually says. That's there for liability. But we also created these persona templates. And there's a blank one here for you as well, and the link for that is there. Again, all this is in that notes page, so if you have that notes page from the very beginning, all these assets are linked in that page. So this is something you can make for your staff that, we understand that none of you are going to read this 20-page tech policy that we just distributed, but these are things we actually kind of care about. And you can print this and you can have this on your desk. And yes, if you violate something in the 20-page policy that you signed, we can fire you. Right? Because that's what it says in that policy. So you might want to read it and know it. But we understand that you're probably not. But this we really need you to know. And this allows you to create these little templates for people. All right? So that's another template. We found this very useful. I create these as assets for every cybersecurity engagement I do with organizations. And now, the third thing, so we've talked about the biggest threats. I've given you the 3 things that you can do. Right, the 2FA, because I like to give people what we promised in the description. We talked about the basics of doing a risk assessment and kind of the fundamentals around threat modeling. Now I said I'm going to talk about why change management is critical. I've actually taught, I think 4 different times, a full day course here at Civic Hall on cybersecurity. I did a course for Whole Whale that was it's up on Udemy for a while, now it's part of the Whole Whale University. And in that course on cybersecurity, I include an entire chapter, when I do the full day, about an hour, on change management. Because fundamentally, when you're doing cybersecurity work, you're changing the behavior of people. And if you can't successfully do that, then you're going to have a real problem with your cybersecurity program. So, how do we go from I can't do it. 2, I can do it. All right. If you're an executive, are there any executives in the room? Any directors, executive directors? There's one. Okay, so Howard, I apologize. It's you want to. I'm a boss. I want to just tell people, I told you to do it, so do it, right? This is the wonderful Jillian Michaels, who I love here. It just doesn't work. That's the problem. And so here's our video, Chris, so we'll see how the audio goes. So this is, Kim introduced me to this book, and when she started saying, I need to learn change management, she said, Josh, go read this, and then you can talk to me. And I did, and it's a phenomenal book. And it's my Bible, but again, too long to read for the TLPR crowd. We're going to play a 2-minute video, and we're going to see how this audio comes out. So hopefully this will work out.
Psychologists know that there are 2 systems in our brains, the rational system and the emotional system. Jonathan Haidt, who's a psychologist at NYU, came up with a great analogy for these 2 systems. He said, think of your brain as a human rider atop an elephant. The rider represents the rational system. That's the part of us that plans and problem solves. The rider might do some analyzing and decide, hey, I want to go that way. But it's the elephant, representing the emotional system, that provides the power for the journey. The rider can try to lead the elephant or drag the elephant, but if these 2 ever disagree, who would you bet on? The elephant has a 6-ton weight advantage, and it's exactly that power imbalance that makes adopting new behaviors very hard. If you want this duo to head a new direction, you also need to think about the path, which represents the external environment. This duo is more likely to complete a journey if you can shorten the distance and remove any obstacles in their way. So bottom line, if you want to lead change, you've got to do 3 things. Direction, and finally, you need to shape the path to allow for easy progress. That's how change happens.
So, when I do the change management, fundamental ideas, make sure that you're doing these 3 things, and then if you're struggling to get people's behavior to change, it's because you're failing to do 1 or more of these 3 things. And this direct-to-rider concept, I think people generally get, all right? But sometimes what you think is people resisting is them just not understanding exactly what it is you want them to do. So the first thing is to make sure that that's really clear to folks, all right? Motivating the elephant, I find. We start to put it on our credential management system, and then on our documentation, and then ultimately on our remote management system, which is how our engineers remotely access people when they need to help them with support. We said you're going to have to put 2FA in front of that. And we were getting some pushback, so like I need to do 20 of these a day. Now I've got to do 2FA code, like I leave my desk for 30 minutes, I have to redo 2FA on that. And I know that seems like nothing. Anyway, it was frustrating for them. And so I was struggling with how do I communicate this. So eventually I came back and I said, listen, a lot of engineers that work for us, they know that we work predominantly with nonprofits, and that's part of why they like working for Roundtable. They know we work with all these really cool organizations doing meaningful things in Europe. So I said, if we have a breach, right, it's not just Roundtable's reputation that's a damage. It's not just like it costs us some money or costs us some clients. It could literally mean that some kid is going to stay in the foster system for another month because the person who's responsible for managing his adoption couldn't get to their email that day because we had a breach. It could mean that a woman who's suffering from violence can't get to a shelter that night because the caseworker that would help her email is down because their organization is ransomware. These are actual lives that could be affected by us not minding our P's and Q's around security. And the second I said that to everybody, they were that's it, we're not arguing, we get it, right? Because it's the emotional part of like, oh, that's why I'm working here, because I want to help those kinds of work. So if you can tap into that emotion and the people you're trying to help, that makes a huge difference. And then finally, this idea of shaping the path, which is more complicated, I think, than people think, which is if I want people to do something different, I need to make it as easy for them as possible to do the thing that I want them to do. So if the path looks like this, that's going to be very confusing. If I make it look a little clearer, that's going to be a lot better. But there's, I'm going to skip this for a moment. There's this little thing, Daniel Kahneman talks about this idea of, asking yourself the question. We tend to think in terms of sticks and carrots, all right, which is really one motivational system, right, which are incentives. I'm incentivizing you towards something that you desire, the carrot that I'll give you if you do what I want, or away from the thing that you don't want, which is the punishment if you don't do what I want, the stick. Okay? It's a very limited framework. So what Daniel Kahneman suggests is instead of asking like what incentives can I add, ask a different question, which is why aren't they doing the thing I want already? And is it possible for me to structure the system that they're in so that the behavior I want them to do is the thing that is the easiest for them to do, the thing that they would do by default? If I can do that, then my job just got amazingly easier. The analogy I often give is we're all walking down the road. My job is to get everybody to a different destination for lunch, and we're walking along this path in the woods, and we encounter this giant boulder in the middle of our way. And some of us are spry enough to get up over the boulder, some of us, with the help of others, get it, and some of us just can't get over the boulder. So at that point, I can stand there and yell at people and say, get your butt over the boulder. I can start hitting you with sticks and say, get over the boulder. I can go to the other side and I can say, whoever gets over, I'll give you $100, whatever the incentive is. Or we can move the boulder, if that's possible, right? That's what. So think of how I can move the boulder when I'm trying to do change management. All right. So reminder, this is not what we want to do. Right? We'll come back to that bicycle thing. That's not moving the boulder, right? That's putting additional boulders in their way. This is one of the last free assets we'll show you. This Kim just took, I had an old roadmap that looked terrible. Kim redesigned it and made a beautiful one for me for a recent project. So you all get the benefit of Kim's wonderful work here. So this is a blank template that you can do for your cybersecurity roadmap for your organization. All right, and again, the link is way up there on the top, the bit.ly link, but again, it's in the assets that you have. All right, and how are we for time? Okay, we're not too bad. So new and emerging threats, we're just going to whisk this very quickly just so you understand something. So this is July 10th of last year. Israel warned of these AI voice deepfake attacks where they're doing fake voicemails. Literally 9 days later, news came out that a company had been breached out of several $millions through so the deepfake voice is where if someone had audio of this session and of me, they could take my voice, and this is like a 14-year-old using tools that they can download for free off the web at this point. All right, in a couple hours a minute. They could design a program, all right, where they could call Kim, and it would look like it was coming from my phone number. So Kim would get a call that looked like it was coming from Josh, and my voice would be coming out the other end. And they could be typing in real time into a typewriter, and my voice would be coming out on the other side. That is technology that exists now that a reasonably savvy 14-year-old could use by themselves. All right, and so how do we defend ourselves from this stuff? We're going to go back to this word, verify. First of all, it's important to educate yourself to know that that's something that's technically not only possible, but not even that difficult now. That we're already seeing attacks like that. All right, and to understand that you can verify. And I'm going to add to 2FA this idea of 2FV, or two-factor verification. So if Kim gets this phone call that looks like all she has to do is hang up and say, Josh, I'm going to call you right back. She hangs up and she calls my phone. Well, that defeats that attack right there, because I can spoof my phone number. This is getting a little technical. I can spoof my phone number going out, but I can't intercept the incoming call. Or she can say, Josh, let me email you, right? Because I want to just make sure this is really you. Or let me text you at a different phone number. Let me find some other channel to just make sure this is really you, right? So two-factor verification is when you're getting some request, even if it seems to be Lubna calling me on the phone, and it's Lubna's voice, and I'm like, God, that sounds like Lubna, but let me verify this in some other way before I wire transfer that $20,000 to the place that she's asking me to, right? Let me just do that one thing. All right, quiz time. Good job, we made it through the content. All right, so this quiz should be pretty quick, and let's play. Good luck, everybody. So again, here's the rules, and you can decline your gift card if you want, but if you come to me, give me a business card or just write down your email address or whatever. I'm not going to sign you up for anything, I swear, you can trust me. Your social security number, your date of birth, you can write it down. Just give me your email address. Tell me if you want Amazon or Starbucks or something else, as long as I can buy it online easily. $25 for first place, $50 for second place, $10. The only person who's not eligible is Kim. Everybody else, including you, Ken, is eligible to play. Here's works. You're going to go to Kahoot, all right, .it, all right. Oh, I have to mute this this whole tab, so let me get back out of that. All right, and you're going to plug in that PIN number. Oh, good, I already muted it. That's why I'm not hearing my music. Good for me. Okay. All right, so everybody's going to go to this, and people are figuring it out. So you go to Kahoot.it. You do not need to install the app or anything like that. Just any browser on your phone should work fine. You put in the PIN number 1101638. Chris, you're more than welcome to play along if you got it. Okay, he's up there. Good. Okay, I'll give everybody a minute or two. If you don't manage to get in, by the way, folks at home, if anyone's on the streaming, by all means, play, okay? You're eligible too. You just have to shoot me an email, Joshua@roundtabletechnology.com, after, and let me know. All right, give it a few more seconds. Now, here's the way this works. You're gonna have little colors with shapes on your screen. You have to click the number, the shape or color that corresponds to what you think the correct answer is. If you think there's more than one answer that is correct, that's fine. Just pick any correct answer. It won't let you pick multiple answers. All right, but once you pick any correct answer, that's good enough. And the way the scoring works is you get points for being correct and points for being faster than everybody else. So the fastest correct answer gets the most points. After that, all correct answers get points, and incorrect answers get no points. All right, good luck, everyone. Here we go. And we have 9 total questions. And our first one is, what percentage of breaches start with phishing, account compromise, or social engineering? Is it 90%, 55%, 28%, or 99%? And you'll see the time is ticking down. So you have 20 and now 19 seconds to answer the question. And the vast majority of you got that correct. The correct answer was 90%. And Howard currently in the lead. Question number 2. Your cybersecurity. Which of these was, watch out for that not, which of these is not one of the 3 things we said you could do to immediately improve your cybersecurity? That was the too long didn't read slide at the beginning. Training, risk assessment, 2-factor authentication, backups, good backups. All right, so risk assessment was the correct answer. That is something you can do to improve, but it wasn't one of the super quick ones we said at the beginning. So good job, whoever got that. Howard, then Chris. What does WRI no preveri mean? What does WRI no preveri mean? Does it mean Cold War? Does it mean trust but verify? Social engineering? Constant vigilance? If anyone knows the Reagan and Gorbachev reference, don't say anything just yet, because you'll be giving away the answer. It's a phrase Ronald Reagan was very fond of uttering back in the day. So 8 seconds left. Someone, okay? Almost everybody got the correct answer. I want to see at least one perfect where everybody gets the right answer. So trust but verify is what. And Ronald Reagan was very fond of saying that. And Gorbachev actually got annoyed with him for saying it so much. It's a funny video clip you can find. Which of these is not? Pay attention to not. Not. Another word for or another form of 2FA. MFA. A strong password. 2-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication. One of these is not. Another word for or another form of 2FA. Oh, so close to 100%. Someone's getting the wrong answer. Every time. Strong password was not another form of MFA. One person said MFA, that is multi-factor authentication, which is another form of 2-factor authentication. Howard, wow, no one can unseat Howard, but he's only 4 points out of Richard, then Chris, then Joe. Hey, Chris, good job with it. All right, word cloud. This is a different one. You're going to type in an answer. This isn't scored. There isn't a right answer for this. I'm just curious. What is your most useful takeaway from this session? You have a full minute on this one to type in your answer, but everybody will finish out as soon as everybody's going. How am I on time? Oh, we're going to finish right at 7:45. We're doing all right. All right, and we'll get a little word cloud up here. See if we get any overlapping answers or not. You got still 30 seconds left, but feel free to submit whenever you're ready. What is your most useful takeaway from the session today? 25 seconds left. And we'll go with some more questions. This one's not scored, so that's okay. Got 11 answers. I think there's only 12 players in the game, so we're gonna, there we go, okay. And security layers. I'm impressive. Wow, thank you. The persona template, MFA, change management, threat framework, and 2FA is the big winner. So at least 2 people wrote that in with an exclamation point. All right, so those are our takeaways. Useful. All right. Question number 6. Which of these is not, pay attention to the not part of the Electronic Frontier Foundation threat modeling framework? Go back to early part of the session. How likely is it that I will need to protect it? What do I want to protect? How bad are the consequences if I fail? How expensive will it be to protect it? One of these is not one of, you missed this one, Howard?
I know, I hit the wrong.
Oh, wrong one. All right. So how expensive? That was not one of the questions to ask, is how expensive it will be. So we got a few people missing up, and we'll have a shake up of the leaderboard. Oh yeah, Richard, then L, then Howard, then Chris, then Joe. All right. Question number 7, coming to the home stretch. Which of the following is not part of the change framework from the book Switch? The elephant, the rider, the path, the weather. One of these is not part of the change. Oh, finally. 100%. Thank you, everybody. You got it fast, too. All right, Richard in the lead. Flurry of correct question. How can you protect against sophisticated attacks like deepfake audio? You can't.
What?
Don't allow voicemail. Verify, verify, verify. 2-factor verification. How can you protect against these incredibly sophisticated attacks like deepfake audio and 2-factor verification, or verify, verify, verify? Both would have been accepted. So again, you got 100% correct answers. I'm very happy. And our last question with Richard in the lead is going to be fish or not a fish? Is that a fish or is that not a fish? One of these answers should be dad joke. My 12-year-old son got this when he was watching me go through test this out earlier today. So is that a fish or is that not a fish? You didn't know there was going to be marine biology on the, and vast majority of you got it. Not a fish. It's also not a fish with a PH. And for those of you, 3 of you, who thought that was a fish, that is a whale. That is a mammal. And our winners are, let's see, in 3rd place, gift card of $10. KM. KM is here. All right. Ken Montenegro, very good. All right. And L, number 2, and number 1 is Richard. All right. Congratulations. So, those who won, congratulations to all of you. If you won, just make sure I get your email address and whatever gift card you want. If you want to decline it, that's fine. If you'd rather. But unfortunately, I didn't bring gift cards with me, so I will have to do it by email. All right. And thank you so much, everybody. And I think that is it for our presentation. We finished right on the dime. So thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Have a great night. All right. Thank you. And by the way, the other thing I'll say, if you look at the slide deck, the rest of the deck is just tons of resources that you can plow through. All that is shared again in the deck, in the notes, so you've got lots and lots of stuff in there. Thank you so much. Please sit the call. Much appreciated.
Thanks for coming out, everyone. Enjoy the food. We're going to be here another 15 minutes, and if you haven't already, join our Facebook group.
I'm old enough.